On one fateful night, me and my three other friends decided to play with the Ouija board at 11 p.m. After playing with the Ouija board for an hour, we ended up talking to something that called itself Hugh. After it spelled out its name, it continually spelled out the letters EDFE over and over again. We thought we were talking with Hugh for over an hour, but all three of us seemed to have lost time. All three of us woke up the next day wondering where the night went. Out of curiosity, we decided to try to contact Hugh over the next 4 days. Till this day, I don't know if it was out of curiosity or if it was an addiction. On each day, after every unsuccessful attempt to contact Hugh, we would start fighting amongst each other and openly wishing harm upon each other. However, we would always regroup and try to contact Hugh. On the last night, one of my friends got possessed while playing the Ouija board. When my friend became possessed, I tried to get rid of the planchette. However, my possessed friend grabbed my wrists, and all I can remember is that her pupils were massive and her voice was terrifying. It was definitely not her voice. It's been about a week, and now Ezjoe is carved into the arm of my friend, and the cut keeps getting deeper and deeper, hour by hour, and the handwriting is amazingly detailed. My boyfriend, unaware of the Ouija board incidents, called me last night crying on the phone, saying that he had had a terrible dream. In his dream, he had witnessed that all three of my friends were possessed, and we all tried to kill one another. After this incident, I have decided that I'm never playing with the Ouija board again. When Jessica was in high school, she had a sleepover with a bunch of her friends. One of them, Amanda, wanted to use the Ouija board to contact her grandfather who had recently passed away. The friends set up the board, turned off the lights, and lit a candle. They called upon the spirit of the grandfather, but when they did, the candle suddenly threw itself directly at Amanda. She felt it was probably not the spirit they were trying to contact. During my childhood, I started playing with and creating homemade Ouija boards around 8 or 9 years old. I didn't know enough about them, but was fascinated by them. My older sister also played with the Ouija board, which may be another reason why I was drawn to them as well. My sister played with the Ouija board in her room. Over time, the Ouija board sessions revealed things that we could never know at the time, and we felt that by playing with the board, that we had the power to make everything and anything happen. Ghosts, demons, hauntings, you name it. We felt as if the board and the entity Ezjoe that we were in constant contact with was giving us power. As we played more and more with the board, things became more and more intense. One day, we saw objects move and levitate across the room. We felt a weird sense of empowerment, which led us to never say goodbye to the spirits. Then, several months later, we started to notice dark, shadowy figures and have things fly across the room towards us. The shadow figures that I saw terrorized my sister so much that she could no longer stay in the house alone. When I moved into my sister's room, I was around 12 years old. I became very depressed. Hoarding became an issue for me. My room turned into a plague, and my parents were seemingly unaware when it was like this. Trash had built up to my knees, and within a few months, I had turned into a sloth. Another strange thing that my sister and I noticed is that during the time Ezjoe was tormenting us, I would go months of waking up with all of my clothes on backwards. The pillows in our room would get hot spots, and we would constantly experience shadow figures that would perch themselves next to me on my bed. I recall one night where I had an extremely vivid nightmare that involved a demon similar to the one that was tormenting since I had started to play the Ouija board. I remember waking up at 3 a.m. and telling all of the shadows to leave. As I was doing so, I was physically pushed by a shadow figure. I will never forget the wretched smell of the demon. It smelled exactly like burnt sulfur. I knew at that point I had to stop playing with the Ouija board and anything that had to do with the occult. Till this day, I always bless the ground and building that I sleep in, and I have not mentioned my past interactions with Ezjoe until now. This all happened in 2005. Ezjoe, or any entity that claims to be Ezjoe, is an extremely dangerous entity, and this is a warning. I have been haunted by Ezjoe pretty much my whole life now, and it seems to be haunting my daughter as well now. My friend had mentioned that she had had a Ouija board, so I asked her to pull the board out so I could check it out. At first she said no, but then agreed to do so, as long as she didn't have to participate. After she had the board set up, I asked, "Is there anyone in here?" Nothing. So, being a dumb teenager, I said, "If anything is here, and you're not talking, you're a coward." The board was put away after that. Fast forward about a week later, and I woke up on a stereotypical stormy night. After that, the board was put away. So fast forward about a week later, I woke up on a stereotypical stormy night. Thunder and lightning, wind and rain, the whole works. I look around to see why I had woken up, but I couldn't see anything, and decided to try to fall back asleep. After laying there for about 30 seconds, I hear from downstairs, "Get the boy," in a very raspy, wispy voice. I open my eyes and listen. Nothing. I start to go back to sleep. "Get the boy." It was much louder this time. Then my downstairs door slams shut. I freak out because nobody slept down there and we had no wind drafts in the house. Nothing really happened after that, but I learned my lesson. I was about 12 or 13, spending the night at a friend's house, goofing around with the Ouija board with him and his sister, and we were getting all sorts of gibberish plus words spelled out. Basically just scaring ourselves for fun and not taking it very seriously. When suddenly we got the message, "I can see you through the window," and then, "I can see you through his eyes," or something like that. Now there was a small window in the basement room where we were, and just the backyard and woods past the driveway visible through that window. We asked it more questions and it said, "I'm under the car." So we somehow got up the nerve to go out with a flashlight and peer under the car, where we saw a huge black stray cat and it was hissing at us. We ran inside freaking out, and at that exact moment the power failed and all the lights in the house went out. We just about actually crapped ourselves. A few minutes later the power came back and we sat up till dawn, that scared, and never played the Ouija board again. When I was 15, my grandma asked me to use a board to contact my uncle who had died at birth. At first, it seemed we were talking to my uncle, but as time went on, the personality of my uncle changed. He got mean and possessive, and finally the spirit told me that it had my uncle and it was coming for me. I blacked out for a full minute. When I came to, the bulbs in the kitchen had popped, and there was glass everywhere. We never played the Ouija board again after that. My name is Kelly, and I believe, especially recently, that a demon has attached itself to me due to my use of the Ouija board. I always feel fear, and have been suffering from a really bad bout of depression recently. As time passes, I have noticed the demon getting physical with me. Occasionally, I can hear the demon calling out my name at night. I woke up the other night at 2 a.m. to whispering coming from the air vent in my room. At first, it just sounded like mumbling. And then after a while, I started to hear the same word being said over and over again. It was my name. This entity was saying my name over and over again. I believe the demon attached itself to me during a recent Ouija board session I had with friends. The session was very uneventful. It was nothing like you see in the movies. It just went from letter to letter, not really making much sense, until we all got bored and put it away. Now also, I'm a career photographer, and strange things have been showing up in my photos. For example, I worked a wedding recently, and after the wedding, I went to upload all of my photos when I realized there was a strange black shadow appearing in every single frame. I've even tried to use different cameras, different editing software. I even tried uploading them to different computers, but nothing seems to work. The shadow is always there. Recently, a friend of mine suggested I do an EVP session to see what this entity wanted from me. The only thing I captured was a faint male voice saying, "Your soul." I can't help but wonder, have I opened a portal to hell? Also, will this demon ever leave me alone? One night, my friend started playing with the homemade Ouija board. I wanted absolutely nothing to do with it, so I decided to go into the living room to watch some TV. Suddenly, the TV started acting strangely. Seemingly out of nowhere, Spanish subtitles popped up on the TV screen. I thought this was weird, but I brushed it off and continued watching my TV show. That's when I heard one of my friends in the other room start speaking Spanish. Now keep in mind, none of my friends know any words of Spanish whatsoever. One of my friends said ayuda, which means help, and atrapada, which means trapped. My mom is from Mexico, so I speak fluent Spanish, but none of my friends speak Spanish at all. Absolutely horrified by what I was hearing, I ran into the room and demanded that they stopped. They put the board away, and we all went to sleep without incident. The next day, I found out that one of my friends actually recorded the Ouija session on his phone. Basically, from what I could hear, they had contacted a woman who said she was trapped in purgatory. She was asking my friends to pray for her soul so she could escape purgatory. After that, we agreed that we would never play the Ouija board again, and he deleted the video from his phone. This happened around 2002 in Potsdam, Germany. I was 11, and this was my very first experience. My sister, who was 12 years old, decided to try a Ouija session with little self-made cards on which the letters were drawn, a table, and glass. She and two classmates were in the living room of our little apartment. My mother had a Ouija experience when she was young and was fine with my sister's curiosity, and she took me and my little brother to the kitchen as to not disturb my sister. We waited for some minutes in there. I stared lazily at the door to the corridor. The door was mostly glass, and I could see everything that was going on behind it. Then, I saw a person walk past the kitchen. He could have only come from the living room, and seemingly was heading for the exit. I was puzzled. First, the man was pitch black and as tall as an ordinary grown-up. Second, there was no audible sound from the living room, nor footsteps. He could not have been there. I brushed it off. I believe my mind was playing tricks on me at this point. Shortly after that, my sister and her friends came into the kitchen and stated that the session had just ended because the spirit left. This was the start of the paranormal activity. Even as we moved on to another house, the paranormal activity continued. Because of my sister's innocent curiosity, in the Ouija board, our home became haunted. It started, in most cases, when it got dark and our parents went to sleep, so they never witnessed anything and thought that we were kind of nuts, to be honest. It was hard. Lights switched on when my sister and I headed for a dark room. That was actually pretty polite of the spirit, I think. There were many things, from shadows to lights going on and off, to knocks on doors, to doors that flew open, to footsteps and even cold spots. There was also an extremely nasty smell in one of the bathrooms. It came without warning, but quickly left. It was clear that this was no normal smell that you could imagine existing in a bathroom. It was like something foul had lain in the tub for a long time. Once, something pushed on my mattress from beneath while I was laying on it and reading a comic. When we were 16 and 15, it all ended because we started to ignore every unnatural occurrence. We had no nerve or power left to stand any more of this game. Fortunately, the spirits cooperated, and I haven't seen or felt anything since that day. This incident occurred about 13 years ago when I was 15 in a city near Perth, Western Australia. At the time, several strange things were happening, which I believe had to do with the seance my friend and I had played not too long ago. Nothing much exciting happened during the seance, and to be honest, I really thought my friend was pushing the glass and never thought of it too much, until I began to wake up at 3:15 every morning with a genuine sensation of total terror. I would lie awake in bed with the covers over my head as I had a strange sensation of being watched and was afraid of what was in the room with me. I would lie there like that until the sun came up. I was always terrified of looking in a certain direction, and upon inspection, I found the glass which had been used in the seance. This took me by surprise, as the glass that we used during the seance had been thrown in the trash. I once again disposed of the glass. However, I kept experiencing the same feelings, and once again upon inspection, came across the same glass that I had already thrown in the garbage twice now. This time, I was determined to get rid of it, so I took it outside and smashed it to pieces on the ground. I continued waking at 3:15 a.m. to the very minute every night without fail, and I started seeing strange dark shadows. The shadows started out as perfect black balls, which would circle my room, then disappear through my window. I put this off to paranoia and lack of sleep, and simply tried to ignore it and go back to sleep, still with my head under the covers. Other people started noticing the shadow too, and at normal waking hours, saying that the end of my house where my room was seemed a little bit creepy. Gradually, the shadows seemed to get bigger and bigger, but I continued to ignore them, until one night. The family dog woke me, again at 3:15 a.m. He was sitting next to my bed, and he was making a crying sound. I figured the dog needed to go outside, so I got up and let him outside. As soon as I went back in bed, the dog was at my window, squeaking and carrying on, so I got back up and let him back inside. The dog followed me to my room and once again sat by my bed and started whimpering. I then took him back outside, and even though he sat at my window still crying, I made him stay there for a bit because I didn't want him coming back in and keeping me up all night. I eventually gave in and let the dog back inside. The bathroom light was on, letting light flood the hallway as I walked back to my room. Then the dog started growling. I moved closer to the bathroom door so the dog could see it was just me, as I worried he was growling at my shadow. I called him up to me as he was still growling and said, "Hey, it's only me. Come here, what's the matter?" The dog slowly walked towards me, still growling, and sat next to my leg. He was growling at something behind me at this point. In a flash, my thoughts raced to, "Oh my God, there's someone in the house," and turned around and started running down the hallway. What I saw was something that has never left my mind, and something no one has ever believed when I've told them. I saw what seemed to be a huge bird. It had huge outstretched wings that would have touched the roof and almost the floor. Its body ended where the wings did, and neither seemed to touch the ground. As it followed me down the hallway, the wings stayed outstretched, and it seemed to glide as it moved. I did notice a small head in between the wings, but no features that I can recall, and the head seemed hooded rather than round, and connected to the body without a neck. The creature seemed more like a shadow than a flesh. And as much as I have tried to put it down to my own shadow, I am certain that what I experienced and saw was real and could have in no way been my own shadow. I remember mostly the wings and the enormity of them as they towered over me, and how it moved as I followed it after me until it slipped into another room and disappeared. I am not sure what happened to it after this, but my sister, who was older and didn't believe in anything paranormal, had some strange experiences involving a black shadow and some kind of weird sleep paralysis, where she was surrounded by a bunch of people laughing at her as the black shadow with wings circled over top. I live in Marion County, West Virginia. This is also the city where my experience took place. I'm now 49 years old, but I was 12 years old when this happened. In 1978, my mother, who is now deceased from cancer, bought me a Ouija board, thinking it was a game we could play together. So one evening while my dad was at work, he was a coal miner, we got out the board, lit a candle, and put it in the middle of the table. We placed our fingers lightly on the planchette. Mom asked if there was anyone there that wanted to speak to us. I was giggling. She asked again. The planchette then moved to yes. I told Mom she was moving it, and she said she was not. Mom asked, "Who are you?" The planchette then went to the letter and spelled Jackson. We did not know anyone by the name of Jackson, first or last name. Mom then asked, "Are you a good spirit?" The planchette moved to yes and then to no. Mom asked, "How did you die?" The planchette did not move from the middle of the board. I was getting scared at that point, so Mom said, "Since you are not going to tell us, we're going to say goodbye now." The planchette slid to no. Mom said, "We have to go." The planchette then went to goodbye. We took our fingers off the planchette, and it was sitting in the middle of the board. The planchette flew off the board, and the round plastic piece where the middle pointer was cracked. Mom put it all back in the box and put it in the closet. Where we lived, the floor was close to the ground, and my room was at the end of the house. And that night, there was a growling sound coming up through the floor in the corner of my room. I went and got Mom. She came in, and the growling stopped. My mom smoked, and that night her cigarette smelled like sulfur. She said they taste like sulfur too. My dad could not smell it or taste it, but I could smell the sulfur, and it was very strong. 3 nights later, the growling started up in the same corner of my room. I went in and got Mom. Dad was home, and Mom told him to get the flashlight and go out and take a look. While the growling was happening, Dad came in and said that nothing was in there. My mom proceeded to yell at it and tell it to stop. It got louder and sounded more like a guttural growl, like it was gonna come through the floor after my mom. It finally abruptly stopped. The next morning, my mom felt sick. We took her temperature and it was 102. Dad took her to the hospital and they admitted her right away. She was diagnosed as having an infection clear through her entire body. She was in the hospital for a week. The doctor told my dad that if he had waited one more day to bring her in, it could have killed her. The whole time she was in the hospital, the room and the whole house was quiet. Mom and I truly believe the spirit of Jackson died from having an infection in his blood, and it was never treated, and he died from it. That is my first experience with the Ouija board. My dad threw it away at the dump yard. I warn others now about the dangers of having and using a Ouija board.